Hey friends, I'm Ari and this is Ari's Book World, and today we're going to talk about the 13 books I read in the month of June. As always, I love to start us off with what I read for book club. So for, I would say, like my main book club where I'm in with two of my friends from college, we actually picked 2 books this month. I would say our first book, the first one we decided on, was We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. This was so sweet. It was so emotional, so cute. The plot is that the world is ending. There's about a month left before this asteroid hits the Earth. So this elderly queer couple decides to take a road trip across the country for one last thing they have to do. You don't find out what that thing is until the end, but you kind of get breadcrumbs throughout the story. So it's not like a shock, but it definitely packs an emotional punch because you know where it's been leading the whole time. But on this road trip quest, you also meet all these different side characters who are kind of internalizing the end of the world in different ways. They're all experiencing it a little bit differently, acting a little differently. We have denial, we have fear, we have just like party time. It's so much fun, and I really loved how he was able to put so much in such a short book. I will say I do wish it was a little longer because I loved the stories that we got on the road trip, so I just wanted more time with each of them, but that's like a personal preference, and I think we all really enjoyed this one. The next book we read was These Summer Storms. This was so much fun. I personally did this on audio with Julia Whalen narrating, and I thought it was a blast. It's very like messy New England family drama. It's about this woman who's been estranged from her family for the last 5 years when she gets a call that her dad passed away, so she has to go to the family private island for an inheritance game because her dad was the billionaire CEO of a company. We have messy, we have drama, we have family secrets. It's so much fun. I could really like mentally see the show of this playing out. I think it would be a fantastic drama series. And then there's a really luscious romance going on in the background of this that I couldn't get enough of. I was absolutely sad for it. So if you like messy family drama secrets, this is definitely one I would recommend. I had a great time. And then for my second book club, we're moving away from like monthly books to bi-monthly books because there's so many of us that like having a time for all of us to meet can be hard to find. But naturally, me and a couple girls did a side quest and still did a book even though we were gonna skip this one, and we chose Honey Be Mine. This was cute. It's about this woman who like has a cute little farm with her mom and her grandmother, and she loves her bees, but she's in a lot of debt, so she's trying to figure out how to like get out of that. And then her old neighbor from when she was younger moves back to town because he's just like wrapping up some things to sell his family's house, and so they end up like working together to put on this like honey festival. It's marketed as like a second chance. I think I saw that a couple times in the like reviews. I highly disagree. They knew each other when they were younger, but they didn't like have a romance. So no, I would say it's more like rivals to lovers in a way, or like acquaintances to lovers. I also will say it's very insta-lusty. They were immediately taken with each other, and because of that, when we got the spice, it came a little earlier in the book, and it was also a little cringy and a little corny, and so I wish like it was a little bit more of a slow burn because then I think I would have been fine with like the spice, but because we got more of it, I was just like, it's so awkward. Like, I don't know, it was just like a little uncomfy reading. So I liked the plot and I liked the romance outside of the spice, but once we got to those parts, it kind of took me out of the story a little bit. So like a little bit of a miss for me, but not a complete miss, and I do think the right people will really enjoy this book. So I've also been doing these monthly challenges where each month I kind of pick a prompt to help me streamline my reading and just like help me work through my physical TBR because she's a beast. And this month my goal was to read a lot off of my Fairy Loot TBR. I've had that subscription for probably over a year now. Not sure exactly when it started, but around there. And my backlog is insane. I had 9 books I hadn't read starting the month, and I read 6 of them. So I feel fantastic about that. So let's chat about them. So the first book I finished was Gifted and Talented. I did this on audio. This one is also kind of messy family drama inheritance. It is about a CEO who passes away, so his 3 children, who are all leading very different but also kind of messy lives, have to come together back to the family home and wait around for this week to figure out who is inheriting what, because there's kind of like drama with the will. There's 2. And so it's messy, it's dramatic, it's sarcastic, there's so much dry humor in here. It's also a little salacious. We have some like really interesting love stories going on. I thought it was just like pure fun. I love the drama of it. I love the humor of it. I do think this book is incredibly character driven, and you spend so much time in the characters' heads that it can really pull you out of the story almost, because you're like, wait, can we get back to the plot? Can we get back to what's happening? However, I did do this on audio, and I think the audio is what saved those parts for me, because I think the narrator did such an incredible job. She did such an incredible job capturing that chaotic emotion of the characters, of the sort of like dry humor and sarcasm and wittiness. And so even during those very like rambly brain parts, you could feel the emotion behind them when you were listening to it, where I think if I was eyeball reading it, I would have been like, oh my god, can we be done? So really, really fantastic. And then the Fairy Loot copy, I don't know if I'll be able to find one like right away. I don't know if the other physical copies have it, but it has art, and I loved that. I also, something I love about Olivie Blake's writing, this is my second book by her, is the way she has sort of like a third-party narrator, and then they like break the fourth wall. I think it's so much fun, and it was so excellently done in this book. The next Fairy Loot book I read was Deathbringer, and this reminded me so much of what I loved about Romantasy when I first started reading it. It was so refreshing. I would say like there's definitely some of your like standard romantasy trope cookie cutter things, but the way it was done just felt so nostalgic and so refreshing and so new that I just ate this book up entirely. This book is kind of like an academy setting, and our main characters are mages. There's different types of mages. Our female main character is a death mage, so she can hear the last word spoken after someone dies. So if they have unfinished business, she kind of like helps them finish that. And then our male main character is a poison mage, and what that means for them is they have these little tiny snakes that they like wear around their arms or around their necks, and those snakes have power that they like utilize through like this mental connection. So he has one that heals, one that poisons, and one that's mortal. Fantastic. I love that. I've never had magic like that in here, or in any book. I've never seen magic like that. And the little tiny snakes, I just ended up loving them so much. They're so sweet. So the plot of this is our female main character ends up going to this academy because her younger sister died, and she's trying to figure out who killed him. And while doing that, she's uncovering a lot of secrets about her sister that she didn't previously know. And then her and this male main character are like working together, and there's like an overall like sinister plot happening because a lot of different people are dying and they're trying to figure out why. It's so much fun. There's like secrets and ghosts, and like the romance is so pure. I really believed in it, and I really believed in them, and I thought the ending was so well done. I cannot wait for book 2. And this one had cute little art, so big fan. Unfortunately, the other one I read right after that, less of a fan. This is the last Starborn Seer, and it's about this woman who's kind of the last of her kind. She was born with this magic that no one else really has, only certain people are born with it, and because of that, her father, who's the king, treats her very poorly and expects a lot from her, and he has been sort of raising this other man to kind of like take over the crown when she and that man get married. So there's kind of like an arranged marriage plot going on, and then at the same time there's sort of this like magical blight over the land that's causing like fevers and a lot of people to die, and then there's like this magical spear orb thing that if you find it, it'll grant you a wish, and her mother's dying, so she wants to find it so she can save her mom. So she ends up plotting out this like big quest with people from all the different factions and all the different tribes to go find this magical orb, because A, it could help save their people, but B, it could help save her mom. So there's this like big quest journey, and then on that journey there's like a love triangle between her arranged marriage man, and this man from another tribe. That sounds like it would be good. However, the execution just kind of fell a little flat for me, because I feel like we didn't get enough of the world building or enough of the magic system to understand why she was treated so poorly for being kind of like the last of her kind, and why that was abnormal. I also felt like we didn't get enough of the romance for any of the like love triangle like dynamics to make sense. It felt like we're just like expected to believe in the romance without like seeing those like relationships develop. And then the ending to me just like fell a little flat, and it was like, oh, surprise, you're gonna have more books because the quest isn't over. And I just wish we had more. I just wanted more kind of from everything. So not a hit for me, but I can see like why it might be a hit for others. I don't know. I don't think I can fully recommend this one. The next one I read was Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibañez. This book made me realize that I do in fact like historical fiction if it's a romantasy. I always say I don't really like historical fiction, but I need just a little bit of magic in my life for it to really hit home because I love this. It's set in 1400s Florence, and it's about this woman who is a sculptress? She sculpts, and she enters a competition to free her brother because she's granted a boon if she wins. She wins, she tries to free him, and then she ends up kind of like being indentured into service for this wealthy immortal family and taken to Florence to help them with sculptures of their own. Anything else feels like a spoiler in terms of the plot, but naturally one of those immortal family members is this very handsome young man who she's infatuated with, and he's infatuated with her, and the enemies to lovers in here felt so perfect. I felt like you could really like feel the slow burn, especially because it wasn't in your face. It was a little bit more subtle, and I really enjoyed how that like developed and laid out. It was definitely a little bit more about like the setting and the atmosphere and her trying to figure out like how to get out of the situation she's in or how to use it to her advantage, and kind of like those like maneuvering. So then when the romance hit, it just hit so hard. And then I just loved that it like had enough characters and enough plot that you really felt engaged the whole time. The atmosphere was beautiful, the setting was beautiful, and it's a standalone, but I think there's going to be more series in it. I think it's going to be like interconnected standalones, so everything still felt very wrapped up at the end, and I loved that. I don't read enough standalone fantasy, so big hit, would highly recommend, especially if you like both historical fiction and fantasy. I think it blends both beautifully. Barrier Bones with Midnight Soil. I feel like I kind of like missed the hype on this. Last year everyone was reading this book and I just never picked it up. I had such a good time. I listened to the audio, and I will say for the first 30 to 50%, I just expected something slightly different from this book. Everyone talks about the tagline like toxic lesbian vampires, and it is that. I don't think that's misleading at all. However, I did expect more of the toxicity to begin earlier in the book. So at first I was just like, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. So I didn't know how I felt about it, but then I realized I literally could not stop listening. I think this was an 18-hour audiobook, and I listened to it in 2 days. At work I was listening to it, commuting to and from work I was listening to it, walking around I was listening to it. I just like fully was invested because I love vampires. This is also another one where there is some like historical fiction aspect sort of in it, because it starts I think in like the 1500s and it ends in like 2019, and so I really enjoyed that. I definitely think we got that toxicity that it like claims to be about in the last like 30-40% very well. I really enjoyed how that was done. My only like big critique is I wanted a little bit more from the ending. I wanted more time spent on like that confrontation and those dynamics, and so I think that would have been really good, but otherwise this was fantastic. This is my second V.E. Schwab, and I can't wait to read more of her books. Alright, and then the last book I read for my Fairy Loot challenge was This Monster of Mine. This was one of the very first books I got through my Fairy Loot subscription, and I'm so disappointed it took me this long to read it. This book was phenomenal. I loved it. It's like a justice system romantasy where a female main character can detect lies. So if anyone's lying to her, she knows. And then because of that, she goes to like the city center to work with a judge and kind of help him adjudicate like civil cases and court cases. And in this like world, there's like 4 judges, each kind of like leaders of their own like quadrants of the city, but work together to determine cases. It's explained a lot better in the book, but the twist here is she wanted to do this for a while, so she came to the city 4 years prior to study and learn, and was almost killed. She was thrown from the top of a tower and somehow survived and smuggled out of the city. So she's back 4 years later to try and figure out what happened to her. And the judge she's working for is her #1 suspect. So good. I thought it was so interesting. I really enjoyed how, as our female main character, she was both hard and soft at the same time. She really wanted to like figure out what happened to her and was holding a lot of secrets, but she was also so like hopeful that things were gonna be better and that things were like gonna be pure. She was like, I wouldn't say idealistic. She was pretty realistic about like what was going on, but she just had so much hope in her heart for things to be better and for people to like see what was going on, and when they wouldn't, she like couldn't understand that, and I kind of really appreciated that about her. I also loved the like slow build dynamics between these characters. Again, such a lovely slow burn, and the yearning you could feel through the pages, both him for her but also her for him. It's single point of view, and it was just so lovely. I believe this is a duology. I think book 2 just came out, so I'll absolutely be reading it. I think what's gonna be fun is things are mostly wrapped up in this one. There's like definitely like room for things to be a little different and for like issues to happen, but for the most part it's wrapped up, so I'm so curious to see what the second book will be like, because I think it's only going to be a duology. I don't think it's going to be like a series of court cases, so very excited about that. Overall, highly recommend. This was so good and also like pretty unique in terms of romanticies. So outside of that, there were 4 other books I read this month that I just kind of read for me. I could have kept reading off my Fairy Loot TBR, but I didn't want to, so I went rogue. So actually the very first book I read of the month was Because I Killed Him by Edith Birde. This book has been taking book talk by storm, and I understand why. It's one of the coolest, most unique dystopian books I've ever read. It takes place in this world that has a very 1920s vibe, but also very futuristic, tech forward, and very interesting. Kind of think like the capital of Hunger Games, but like strictly like the capital. That's kind of like this vibes. The citizens are divided by the color of their blood, so they're all people who've been like genetically modified in one way or another, and based on the color of their blood is the way they've been genetically modified, and then that's how they're divided again. So our main character is a green blood, and that's considered a lower class citizen. The only high class citizens are the blue bloods, and that's what our male main character is. And then on top of all of that, they have these civil credits, and those civil credits, if they get below a certain number, determine if you live or die, and you can lose them by just like breaking the law, because like there's just surveillance everywhere. So like no one has to be like, oh, I deduct you 20 civil credits. It's just like a notification you get on like your internal brain feed that is like minus 20 credits, you skip class. So already super interesting. Our female main character goes to an academy where she literally has to like fight every day to survive. This academy has an insane mortality rate, and so she ends up having to align herself with this blue blood in order to get protection so no one kills her. Crazy. On top of that, there's so much like political upheaval happening in the background. There's so much things she's uncovering, and the slow burn, it's so good. My man yearns for this woman, and there's a part in here that has everyone crashing out over seashells, and I know if you've like seen some of that, you're like, they're literally just shells. Trust me, you will crash out too. This book was phenomenal. It's massive. I was so surprised when I got this how thick it was. It earns every single page. I never wanted to put it down, and frankly I was kind of sad when it was over. I can't wait to continue the series. And also, when I first got it, it was only available on Amazon. It's now available at like some local indie bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, and other realtors. So if you don't want to support Amazon, you don't have to. And then next, The Kingdom of Copper. This was my favorite book I read in the month of June. This book was incredible. So I read The City of Brass a couple months ago, and when I read it, I was like, this is very enjoyable. I really like the world and the plot, but I wasn't like, this is my favorite book. I felt like there was more that needed to happen with the plot, with the romance. I couldn't really tell where the story was going. It was all lead up for this. It's a trilogy, completed, amazing. But man, was book 1 really just a prequel for book 2. This book was phenomenal. It takes place 5 years after the ending of The City of Brass, and that's kind of why you feel like that was all set up for this. We have so much character growth, so much political maneuvering, so much manipulation. It's so good. I was emotional, I was devastated, I couldn't put it down. I hurt for our main characters, I wanted more for them, and I was so frustrated with so many people in this book in like the best way possible. I will say this one has a lot less romantic plot than book one, which is fine. I didn't even care that we didn't have as much romantic plot, but I'm really hoping we get it back in book three, because there is like a couple I'm very much rooting for that I want to happen. But I feel like what really sold this for me was just the storytelling. It felt so immersive. I was so sat and ready to like ride or die with these characters. I think every character is so well written. You can see their motivations and how they might be like being manipulated by someone else or doing the manipulation, or how they're coming to terms with maybe what they once believed isn't what they should be believing or isn't what is true. And it just feels so authentic and so real. Could not put it down, could not recommend it more, and I absolutely can't wait for the rest of the series. And by the rest, I just mean book three, but that's fine. All right, and then I had two last books that I read on audio. The first was The Midnight Library. This is actually my book club pick for July. I just read it early. I enjoyed this. I did the audiobook. I thought this was very well written and I really enjoyed the storytelling. My issue is I don't know if it's because of the audio, because I didn't love the audio performance, or if it's part of the book as well, but I don't think we sat long enough in some of the choices and in some of the moments. So I never felt like as emotionally connected as I think I should have. I think it's a beautiful display of grief and depression, and how it's not about just getting past it. It's not just about like choosing to be happy, but rather how to like change your point of view to be like, oh, I can be sad right now, I can be upset right now. It's just about the opening of possibilities for my future. I thought it just like was very beautiful, and I think if you've experienced these sad moments or experienced like depressive moments, this could be very impactful for you. But I just wish it could like land a little bit better. I just wanted a little bit more from it, but that's okay. Still a good book, and I think I will still read book two. They're not like sequels, but they're in the same world. The last book I read was just a little audiobook treat, and that was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I grew up watching this movie. It was kind of like a cult classic in my house. I've seen it so many times, and so when I was at Barnes & Noble a couple weeks ago, I saw this book and I was like, you know what? I feel like I would enjoy reading this. I feel like it's like the right vibe. And then I had some extra Spotify hours and saw the audiobook was under $6. And so I was like, you know what? Let me listen to it. I listened to the entire thing while I was at work, like on my commute there, and while I was doing some basic data entry. It was so funny. It was so engaging. It was just like a damn good time. That's really all I have to say. There's not like a ton of like actual plot to this book. It's definitely just like a fun adventure. But I was okay with that, and I think I would definitely read the other books in this series when I wanted that like audiobook snack, basically. It was just like funny and well written and an adventure, and I had fun, and that's really sometimes all you need. So those are the 13 books I read in June. So if you've read any of these, please let me know how you like them and if you agreed or disagreed with my thoughts. I love chatting about that. I think it's so interesting how we can read the same book and have two completely different views on it. But if you've been here this whole time, thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram at Ari's Book World. We have a lot of fun over there, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.